Did I fold? No, because I've never folded in no situation. In fact, going back to my childhood, teenage days, I've always been the protector of everybody. So that's a characteristic that's just been in me. I like to make sure that everybody's good. So I fight for you, and I've fought for some of the most unworthy people to fight for, and still, fight for them. And if that's the biggest guy, I'm going to fight him for you. So I've always had that type of mentality, and so when I'm in that environment, it didn't change.
Yeah.
Whoever I was before came out then. You remember I was talking about I was the nerd?
Yeah.
We're getting to that a little later on.
Okay.
Because eventually, even in there, I was the nerd.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Now, being in prison, did you join any gangs?
So, it's funny that you asked, because prior to prison, I was affiliated with GDs.
Okay.
All right. And that was our set. We claimed FMK because I'm from Finkel. So
Okay.
that was our thing. Yeah, we knew lit. I knew my lit.
What's
I knew
that?
literature.
Okay.
So literature is the precepts and understandings of the game that you in.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
That shit came off the head.
Yeah. So you were affiliated before you went in.
I was.
Were you involved with it when you went to prison?
I wasn't.
You wasn't?
No.
Okay.
And it wasn't nothing towards the ones who did represent.
Yeah.
It's just that when I got into it, they wasn't there with me. When I stayed in that environment, they weren't with me either. How I went through the processes that I went through, they weren't there with me. So, do I really owe any loyalty?
No, not at all.
Right. I mean, just logically, do I owe any loyalty? I mean, respect is given to what respect is due. I still respect that because, I mean, going back to the history of who they are, like from Chicago and from Larry Hoover. And
they had more positive impact than negative.
I can say
during
yeah.
the early fundamentals.
Yeah, I can actually say, because okay, I can tell you I'm affiliated with a lot more. Like I really understand the legacy and the history of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were on some positive shit in theory. I mean, shit happens. It devolves into things because sometimes you don't have any control over it. Okay, but for the most part, it's to keep us, and to separate the abnormal from our community. That was the point. I mean, this was in the 60s.
Yeah.
So you had to keep your people with your shit, and you had to keep people who wasn't with your shit from your shit.
Yeah, it was more organized.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And so that wasn't how it was when I was affiliated. Okay. When I was affiliated, it was more a show out thing. Like, and hey, I wanted to separate myself from everybody else in these territories. So this is what I am.
Gotcha.
It wasn't until I went to prison that I actually learned what the fuck was really going on when it came to it. You know what I'm saying? And why it exists from the start.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I ain't got no problem with multiple businesses or anything with interracial influences in the businesses, but I just want to be black. Can I just not be black and have my business?
Yeah.
And can I just not hire blacks with my business? Well, that's how it was in the community aspect. You know what I'm saying? Let me just be black.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to deal with nobody else.
Yeah.
You understand? So I understand that. And I see where it devolved into. But it ain't no fault of my own.
Yeah. For sure.
And I'm not knocking that. I mean, I respect it to this day because I understand what it stood for. But what it stands for right now, I still don't have no say so about it.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is. But in that environment, being prison, I just did not necessarily affiliate. I mean, people knew me,
Did anybody ever try you in there?
tried me. So that's a good story because I made sure that people wouldn't want to try me. Within my first 2 months of being incarcerated, I developed the name, the Knife Guy.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, the Knife Guy.
Because being a 18-year-old kid in prison and you're around all of these adult males that you are around all walks of life. You're around the murderers, you're around the rapists, you're around the booty bandits, you're around all of that as an 18-year-old kid.
Absolutely. So that was like a shock to some extent because I told you I'm traveled. So I meet a lot of people and I meet a lot of different personalities, and then I could be able to at least understand what's going on up in there. It's a different environment. It's random, different types of people, so I can kind of adapt. But what I would not let do is people to think that I'm not capable of handling my own shit.
So you set the tone for that.
I set the tone for that, and so what I did was, I developed this personality or this characteristic of being the knife guy.
So as soon as you got in there,
I was making knives.
You started making knives.
Immediately.
How long did it take for you to start doing that?
Well, see, it wasn't because I had seen something that made me want to just start. It was probably the thought of preceding me to make me want to start doing this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I probably didn't have to, right? But fuck that. I'm just going to do it just because.
Yeah, so we all watch shows and stuff on how people make these knives and stuff.
Right.
What was your method?
Metal.
You use metal.
Absolutely. So listen, I don't know. I don't want to fuck it up for people who might be in the same situation, but
they got to take accountability.
And I don't want to be the cause of taking accountability, because if they feel like they have to protect themselves, they do. So I was in this one particular institution where I had access to, more freedoms and open space. Mm-hmm. And I would take certain properties from that particular place and forge them into knives. Mm. And I did.
Okay. I'll leave it at that.
And I did. That. Right. And I did.
That. What made your time easier? Doing 17 years in prison as an 18-year-old man.
So the first bid, what you call bid, I did 13.
Okay.
I came back out, and after 2 years, just before parole, I did another 4. So I did 13 years.
You learned when you got out.
No, I actually learned a lot, and my second reason for going in was because of me not the consequences of the first. Mm. I'll explain what I'm saying. So. In the 13 years, I learned who I was. Yeah. I learned my strengths. I learned my weaknesses. I learned what I actually wanted in life. And I knew being in prison wasn't it. Yeah. This wasn't it. Good thing that I had my support team. I had people who were always writing and talking to me and making sure that I'm affiliated and connected to the societal
Do you think that
norms.
you needed to be away from all of the stuff that you had going on the outside world in order for you to realize where you were going wrong?
No,
No.
not necessarily. You know, a lot of people would say, "Hey, prison saved me," but
Yeah.
I can't necessarily definitively say that. I can say that the trajectory of my life would have been a lot different. You know, just before I was just telling one of my homies that some time ago, just before I got locked up, I had the opportunity to go to Japan. But I you know, once I got locked up, that definitely wasn't the case, you know, at the time. So I can't say that had me going to Japan changed the changed the trajectory of my life at that time.
Yeah.
Then I can say, hey, my life would have been different because I've been here and learning whatever it is I was learning there, you know. And then the changeover from me being in prison, I can't compare, you know what I'm saying? So, no. That's the answer to your question,
Okay.
no.
Did you have a routine that made you cope with being in prison easier?
Yeah, so while I was in prison, instead of using prison as a time to vacation, which a lot of people in prison say that it from the outside looking in, they say, hey, you on a vacation. That's not a fucking vacation. Either you have the opportunity to learn or to become worse than you were before you went in there.
Yeah.
And so I actually took the opportunity to better myself, you know, educationally, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. And I did. I saw myself progress to become the person that I really wanted to be. And it wasn't just a figment of my imagination. It was something I said, hey, I'm going to do it once I have the opportunity to return to society to do it. I was, listen, man, up in there, man, I was a paralegal. I was,
You're a genius.
bro, listen, man, listen, if somebody wanted their electronics fixed, I fixed their electronics.
You've made the stingers.
Listen, man, I made everything. Man, I made stingers to heat up coffee, to cook your noodles, to everything.
Yeah.
I made sure that your TV had cable. Like I did everything.
Okay.
And if you wanted to go home, I got 5 people home. I got 2 people that had problems with their family, you know, child support and all that, and family court. I got 2 people to be able to have even connection and contact with their own children.
Amazing.
You know, I've done a lot in that area. That's because I put my mind and focused on it. And when people say, hey, you can't do anything in prison, oh man, I've changed lives.
Nice.
I got 3 people home. Like I wrote their briefs out in a way that a lawyer that's paid thousands of dollars to do to get them out.
Yeah.
And if you can fact check that this shit is real. Like I knew what the fuck I was doing. It's because I applied myself. And it's nothing that you can't do. I don't care where you're at. And if you apply yourself, you'll get it done. Nothing. So from there, I progressed to learn. I think I learned some trades in there, like custodial maintenance and builder's trades, and you know, I got all these certificates stacked up. And lo and behold, all that shit that I would have learned then carried over to when I eventually got the opportunity to be back in the world to do it.
Nice.
And it made me very prosperous.
Nice.
You know, so hey, do I give credits to the MDOC? Sure. You gave me the opportunity to learn these things for taxpayers' monies. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the taxpayers for paying into it. But it really depended on me. I learned the trades that I learned in prison. I believe I spoke about builder's trade, from custodial maintenance, and a few others. All those aspects that I learned, I actually capitalized off of it when I was, eventually released into society. So it's not that I stayed in prison to just vacate. I didn't stay in prison to just wallow and to become worse. Because it's dudes that I knew that was halfway crooks. When they got there, they became full crooks. Came out scamming, doing, shit that was subject to going straight back to prison without chaser. So I understand that it was all up to me, depending on what I wanted to do with it. I'm not going to say, hey, the government was pushing to make sure that you rehabilitated. No, rehabilitation starts with self. Yeah. And so you spoke about the gangs. They wasn't on that. They wasn't on rehabilitation. They was on cronyism. If you know what cronyism is, you click up, you group up, and whoever the leaders of the group says goes. Mm-hmm. And that might not have your best interest at all. Individually. I mean, collectively, it might have an interest, but individually, it doesn't. So it's not to say that I had any problems with it. It's just that just wasn't me. But I will admit, I did associate and affiliate with a group in prison, which was the Nation of Islam.